All right. Thank you for joining, everyone. A very good afternoon, good evening. And today our session, episode 5. And once again, thank you for joining with us for one of the biggest event for Salesforce Marketing Cloud Bootcamp. And thank you once again for the great work that what you guys are doing for so far long as a trailblazers. And we were really keen to see all of the trailblazers to certified in Marketing Cloud at the same time. Be our dream job in Salesforce Marketing Cloud as well. So we're here to help you out for mentoring you or helping you out for whatever you guys need, in terms of learning Marketing Cloud or kind of resources you need. Get in touch with the right people, so we'll help you out on all the aspects. So some housekeeping rules we have during the session. You could leverage the post your messages in chat for any clarification. If you can use this Google form where you can scan the code and then you can just type the question as well. And all the recording sessions available under YouTube at the end of the session or maximum by the end of the day. And you can just leverage this QR code where you can get the YouTube recordings as well. And if you want to sign up for future sessions, you can sign up for sessions. There are plenty of sessions which are going in, which include CDP. So the CDP sessions are kickstarting from Feb 14th onwards, along with our main sessions. So anyone interested, you can join with those CDP sessions as well. Right. So today we have episode 5 of Marketing Cloud Bootcamp, so Marketing Cloud setup and admin activities. So we'll quickly start with an introductions of organizers. An agenda today, setup and admin activities is going to be done by Manish and we certification over here. So these vouchers will be distributed at the end of every month, right? So these are all organizing teams. So we have without any delay, I'm going to hand it out, Manish, about information on the next where you're going to talk about it. Thank you, Manish, for joining with us, and over to you. Thank you. Go ahead, Manish. Thank you. Manish, can you hear me?
Yes, I think earlier you were breaking a bit. Just want to check how is my audio? Are you able
Your
to?
audio is good because I was just came to India with my location, so I think it's a problem. But yeah, I think yours is fine. All right.
Okay, great. Okay, let me share my screen and get started.
Yeah, we can see your screen, Manish. Are you talking, Manish?
Sorry. Yeah, we'll get. I was on mute. Sorry. Okay. So in this session, thanks. I'll be talking about how to set up your entire marketing cloud. What's a base setup? So we'll go through some settings and all. So before that, so a little bit about myself. So I'm a Salesforce MVP and marketing champion for almost 3 years now. Previously, I've led Singapore developer group. I was a leader for almost like 6-7 years. Similar to how Funny is currently leading the marketing group, I was leading the developer group. And last year, I've started the architect group as well. So in these groups, we talk about more on the sales cloud and the other stuff where we do sessions on that. I'm 10 times certified, so I've covered into sales, service, and marketing cloud consultant and some of the certifications around that. I also blog about Salesforce and on my personal blog. It's SFDC Fanboy. Feel free to reach out to me on my LinkedIn and Twitter as well. I'm also a Udemy instructor. So I'm very much focused for, at least for the past 5 years, I've been focusing on Marketing Cloud. So I've created some courses as well. As you can see, so there's one course on email specialist. And so these are courses purely related to certification, not really about projects or anything, but purely focusing on certification. So this is one on admin. So you can, I'll share this deck again with you, so you can use this bit.ly links. So bit.ly SFMC admin. There's also one on consultants. So you can see around almost like 3,000, 4,000 students have already registered and been using these consultant courses for their certification. So feel free to use them as well. So let's get into today's topic. So I'll be talking about send management, like how do you set up the send related stuff, or how do you do email sends in Marketing Cloud, and the basic setup required for it. So we'll talk about sender authentication package, and also I'll go through some of the account settings, which are very useful if you are a Marketing Cloud admin. Even some of these topics are covered for your admin certification. So if you are going for admin certification, this entire session is very much useful for you. Almost, if I would say, in admin certification, the setup part and all the topics that I cover, it will almost cover you 40 to 50% of the certification are from today's session itself. So feel free to refer to these session if you're focusing on Marketing Cloud admin certification as well. And at the end, I'll also cover some of the common topics on like how to raise your support ticket or how to check Salesforce Trust. So we'll go through a couple of topics on that. Let's get started. I'll start with send management. Before that, so I'll introduce you to some of the common terms or very important terms. Again, not really related to Marketing Cloud, but generally as a email send perspective. Okay, so these terms are not really Marketing Cloud, but these will be used across different platforms as well. So we'll talk about ISP. So when you hear about ISP, it's nothing but an email provider. For example, Gmail or Yahoo Mail. We are talking about mail specific. So all these are email internet service providers. So these provide you an email inbox to use the email feature, right? So these are called ISPs. Then we also have an IP address. So for every machine that is sending out an email, there is an associated IP address with it. So similarly, if you're sending an email from Marketing Cloud, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, there would be an associated IP address with it. So that means anyone will be able to track when they receive an email, they will be able to track who is sending it or which machine is sending it based on this IP address. So even in your movies that you see, right? So how they're able to track. So because for every machine that is sending out an email, there is an IP address associated with it. Then we have something called shared and dedicated IPs. So what happens is instead of using a single IP for your organization, Salesforce has this also feature called shared IPs. So that means one IP address is being used by different organizations and they all send the email from this IP address. Okay. So why do they do it? Generally because if the email volumes are not so much, you don't need a dedicated IP for it. Only if you're sending very few emails per month, then you probably use a shared IP. That means this IP is used by the rest of all the organizations within that shared IP pool. Whereas a dedicated IP, that means you have your own dedicated IP address for your organization. So for a dedicated IP, you need at least like 250K emails to be sent from per month from an IP. So in that case, you will probably use a dedicated IP. If not, you can use the shared IP. Then we also have something called domains and subdomains. So for every IP address, we also associate with a friendly name called domain names. So instead of using IP names, we also refer to the domains. Okay. So this is purely to identify the sender. Then we have email authentication. So this is a process that actually checks whether this IP address and whether this domain are authorized to send out an email or not. So this is an email authentication process that we have. So these are general, very important terms, generic across email sending. Okay. If you have questions, maybe I'll take those questions at the end of one of the topics. Okay. Then I'll quickly explain how this authentication works. For example, we have an email server, and as I said, for every server or a machine, we have an IP address, and you are sending out an email from this server. Then you have your domain name. So for example, if you are sending from, so the domain for here is Exchange Server Pro. So this is an email domain, and Adam from this company is sending out an email. So the IP address is here. So once he sends out an email, what happens at the receiving end? So at the receiving server will check with the DNS. So this is like a database. Okay. So it checks. Okay. So the DNS will check whether this IP address is allowed to send an email from this domain or not. So that is a check they do. So if it is not, then they will tag your email as spam. So that's why it's very important you associate your domain and IP address. So this is the authentication process that is followed. Okay. So it's very important you associate your IP address with your domain. So for that, how do we do it? That I'll go into the details later, but generally this is how the process works. So before an email is sent and it goes into the email inbox, there's a check by the DNS server to make sure that you are the actual owner who is actually sending it. Okay. So this is the email authentication process. So for example, then I'm slightly switching into marketing cloud terms here. So let's say we have a brand. So I'm taking the name of my own blog. So SFDC Fanboy, it's a brand. Then the domain I want to use it is sftcfanboy.com. That's very straightforward. Now we have something called subdomain. So email.sfdcfanboy.com, or you can say e.sfdc or something else dot your main domain. So then it becomes the subdomain. So for your email sending purpose, what you will do is you will use the subdomain and then your from name. So as you can see, I'm using e.sfdcfanboy or or email.sfdcfanboy with my from email address. So why we didn't need to use the subdomains? Okay. So for example, there's a spammer who wants to use my brand to send out an emails. They won't be able to create a subdomain like this. Okay. Only the owner of SFDC Fanboy will be able to create a subdomain. No other person in this world would be able to create a subdomain like this, because I am the owner of this domain. Only I will be able to create a subdomain. So when I send out an email from this subdomain, it's very sure that the recipients are very sure that it is purely coming from this domain, or it's purely coming from this owner of this domain. So that's why for any brands that you see, they always use this subdomain. For example, SFDC Fanboy, like say brand -email. So this is not a subdomain. This is another brand. So spammers would be able to create domains like this and send out emails, but they won't be able to create something like this. So when you receive emails, just make sure. So that's why it's also best practice that the brands use these subdomains, so everyone is aware that it's the actual owner. So that's why we use so this will become your from email address. And the front part, the from name, it can be anything. Okay. So the brand name can be changed. So a combination of the from name and the email address makes it as a sender profile. Okay. So in your marketing cloud, when you set up the sender profile, you are actually choosing an email address and the brand name that the customers should see. So that will become your sender profile. And we also have something called delivery profile. So as I mentioned, for every email send or a machine, we need an IP address. So here for your marketing cloud instance, you have your IP address. So delivery profile is nothing but your IP address. So again, it can be a shared IP or a dedicated IP. Then we have send classification. So send classification is nothing but a combination of your sender profile and a delivery profile. So that means whenever you're sending an email from Marketing Cloud, you are choosing the send classifications. That means you're selecting what should be the from name, what should be the email address that you're sending, and what is the IP address. So all this you set up in the send classification. And send classification also has one more feature. You're also telling your customers and the ISPs whether your email is a commercial email or a transactional email. That means a commercial is like your promotional emails, and transactional means like your service notifications. So you're also telling ISPs that, okay, I'm sending out email, a commercial email from this IP address. This is my brand and this is my email address. So all this validation will be done at the server to validate that you are the owner and you are the eligible owner, the actual owner who are sending out the email. Okay, if any questions, feel free to message. For now, I'm proceeding with the next topic. Then we have sender authentication package. So all this authentication should be done using a package. So Salesforce offers this something called as a sender authentication package. It's nothing but a branding tool, and it is a collection of products. So there are 4 products in this. One is the branding. Then there's a private domain, an IP address, and reply mail management. I've already talked about IP address, and I've also talked a bit about the domains. So we already know about this. Then I'll talk about branding and reply mail management. So all this together will make it as a sender authentication package or an SAP. So let's talk about branding first. So again, I'll take the same example for throughout the session. So the domain is this. So whenever I want to send, I'll use a subdomain, as I mentioned. So email.sfdcfanboy. And these are my different sender profiles. I'll use campaigns or newsletters or promotions or notifications, etc. So these are my sending email addresses. Okay. As you can see, I'm still using my subdomain itself for all these. Then so that is one branding. Then the other branding that you see is, let's say you have uploaded the images, right, into Marketing Cloud. What will be the URL of that images? So that would be image dot, then your subdomain, email.sfdcfanboy. Even the clicks in the email, if anyone clicks on the email, there's an image or a URL, even the clicks will be captured under your branding. And if you have any cloud pages, like a landing pages, even those will be captured under your branded email address or branded URLs. So with this package, you are getting the entire branding as well for everything in the email. So when you look at an email, the sender is branded, the images are branded, the pages are branded, the anything that you click is all branded with your own subdomain brand. So that means your entire email is very secure, and the authentication is actually done, and you are the actual sender of that. So when you look at an email, you'll be able to easily identify whether it's a spam email or a real email. Okay, so the question is, do we need to follow subdomain usage or instead of domain? Does it have an impact on deliverability success rate? So the best practice, as I mentioned, is to use subdomain. You can still use your domain and send out emails. That won't have any impact. The only issue with having domain when you send out is others, spammers would be able to replicate your domain and they will be able to send out emails, and your customers won't be able to identify whether you are the real sender or is it a spammer. That's the main issue. So to avoid that, you use your own subdomain. That's the only concern. Okay. But otherwise, no other concerns of using a domain. For some clients, we still use domains. Again, it's their own reasons and all, but the best practice is always to use subdomain. And so when you purchase this package, you get a account branding, as I mentioned, and you can also have email sending private domains. You can purchase separate domains as well, along with the original domain. Okay. So let's say I have 2 brands, SFDC Fanboy and Fangirl. Now my pages, let's say I want to have 2 different branding, right? If you want to have 2 different brands, you won't be able to configure them in Marketing Cloud in a single business unit. That is not possible. Every business unit will have its own branding. Okay. That's rule number 1. So if you want to have these 2 different brands, then you need to configure 2 separate business units. Okay. And each business unit will have its own SAP, and each SAP will have its own branding. Okay. And similar to brands, you can also, let's say your company is operating in 2 countries, UK and Singapore. You'll have sfdcfanboy.co.uk and .com.sg. So two different, again, branding cannot happen in the same BU. So multiple brands in a single BU, it's not possible. Then I'll say, talk about sending domains. So the branding domain is one, then the email sending domain is another one. Okay. So the SAP branded domain is Fanboy, and I purchased another domain, SFDC Fangirl. So what I'll do is I'll send out an email from sfdcfangirl.com. Okay. This is my sending domain, but all my brands, all my URLs will still use my private domain, still use my branding domain. It won't use the sending domain. Okay. So in this example, what I'm saying is, so my SAP domain is this. I can still send from other domains, but all the images, the clicks, the views, the cloud pages will still use my SAP domain. So my SAP domain is Fanboy, and I purchased another domain, Fangirl. This additional domain that you purchased will be used only for sending purpose. It won't change the branding. Okay. So if you want to have different branding URL experience, again, as I mentioned, you need to have separate BUs and one SAP per BU. So multiple email sending domains in a single business unit, it is possible. You can send from Fangirl or Fanboy or any other domain. So multiple email sending domains is possible, but multiple brands in a BU, it's not possible. Okay. Let me quickly check. Any questions? Need to have two different marketing cloud instance? No. Okay. We don't need to have different marketing cloud instance. It's called business unit. So within marketing cloud, I'll show you what are these business units as well. I'll talk about that business unit. It's like switching from one org to another org, but it's within the same marketing cloud instance. Okay. Then the next topic, the final one in the SAP package, is reply mail management. Okay. So let's say you send out an email to 1,000 customers, and you will receive some of these out of office replies from all these customers, or some customers want to reply to the email that you've sent. So how do you handle all these replies? For that, we use this RMM. Okay. So the first option is you can set an automatic reply to the sender. Like someone replies, you can say, okay, we are looking into your response. We'll come back to you in a week or something. Or you can say, we are not monitoring our inbox. Feel free to reach out via so-and-so channel. Okay. So you can set out an automatic reply if your customer replies. Instead of that, you can also forward all the incoming messages into another inbox that you actually monitor. So that forwarding can also be done. And RMM also handles all the out of office replies and auto replies. So you can have, there are a couple of options how to handle this. Okay, I'll go through those options as well. Apart from out of office and handling these auto replies, you also have option to unsubscribe, auto unsubscribe. Let's say customer replies as unsubscribe. There's nothing else. So you also have the option of using RMM to automatically unsubscribe this user from that from your brand. So that option is also there. So quickly looking at the reply mail management options. So this is a screen from your marketing cloud instance under admin. You have reply mail management. So here you will set all the configuration that I just mentioned. So you will set what is the email display name the customer will see when they reply to your email. So what do you want to display, and what is the email address that they should see? Okay. And whether you want to delete all these out of office replies and auto replies. Generally you want to delete. You do not want to see whether they're out of office or anything. Again, depends on the kind of email that you're sending. So generally you set it as yes. And whether you want to unsubscribe if someone replies to you. Okay, so if you set as yes, then these are some of the keywords that the email checks for. So if someone replies as unsubscribe or unsub or opt out, so if you check these, that means the RMM will check for all these words. And if any of the replies contains this word, then it will automatically unsubscribe because you've chosen as yes. So this is the deletion and unsubscribe, auto unsubscribe. Then you also have, as I mentioned, you can set out a response, automatic response for every email reply. So you can set a default response, or you can also configure your own reply. Then after all this is done, if there are still emails with some other replies, so you will set the email address here. That means that email will be forwarded to you. If it is not an unsubscribe email, if it is not an out of office email, then those replies will be forwarded to the final email address that you set. So that's the entire feature of RMM. So all these four together make it as the SAP. Going into the next, so this is all about setup. So in Marketing Cloud setup, you have your users. How do you set up users? We'll also talk about how do you set up business units. Actually, what are business units? I'll go through them. How do you set up the data management? And there are some settings. Probably I'll skip. I'll definitely go through all of them, but I'll probably rush to them and cover some of the very important topics here. And then company settings, and there are some security settings as well. So this is the entire setup of Marketing Cloud. So if you are aware of all these, then you'll be able to easily set up anything in Marketing Cloud. And as I mentioned, so this setup in your admin certification, there is 38% of topics are from this entire setup itself. So if you know this, you are actually covering 40% of your admin certification. So let's quickly go through these as well. So users, Marketing Cloud users. So these are nothing but the users, as in the one who accesses your Marketing Cloud instance. Okay. So someone who needs to configure emails, who needs to send out the emails, and someone who wants to set up everything, right? So these are the users who have access to your Marketing Cloud instance. So they can be admins or general users as well. And there can be API user as well. So that means that user will help in connecting your Marketing Cloud instance to the other external system. So different types of users are there. Then for each one, there are roles that you can assign. So Marketing Cloud admin is one role. That means this user has permissions to do everything in this in your Marketing Cloud instance. Then you have a viewer role. So that means this user won't be able to do anything except to view. More like your CEOs and all, probably you can give them access as a viewer. So they can look into reports or probably look into emails and all. That's all. Then you have channel manager. So these are those who can create marketing campaigns across different channels like email, SMS, push. So all those can be handled by these channel manager. Then you have your security admin. So this is like an IT person. So if an IT person wants access to Marketing Cloud instance, you will give them a security admin. So this person will have access to only the setup. They won't be able to send out any emails. Okay. So that is the role. Then the final one is Marketing Cloud content editor or publisher. So these are like, let's say you have a HTML developer, right, who only needs to work on emails, okay, or an SMS content. So for them, you will give this editor role. They won't be able to send out, or they won't be able to access the setup, etc., purely for editing content. So this is for them. So based on the user permission that they require, you assign the roles. So apart from roles, you can also have some additional permissions. Like if you want very specific permission to be given to a user, you also have that option. Apart from assigning a role, you can also some other additional permissions. Okay, you can also do that. So next, going into business units. There's one question. Can we have different sender profile for each business unit? Yes. You can create as many sender profiles as you want. There's no restriction on that. So talking about business unit. It's not going to my next slide. Just a second. Okay, business units. Yeah. So business units, they allow you to control access to information and sharing of information. Okay. So let's say you have given access to 5 users to a business unit. That means all these 5 users can access all the items in that business unit. Okay. That user won't be able to access anything from the other business unit. And you can also share items from one business unit to other business unit. Okay. So it can be like content or even folders you can share. So with business units, you are actually replicating your organization structure. It can be based on department. Let's say one IT department, you want to access to one business unit, and marketing for one, or based on geography as well. So let's say Singapore is one business unit and China is another business unit. So based on that, so that means Singapore business unit users will be only able to access that business unit. They won't be able to access other. So based on that, you can set up your business unit structure. And it helps you into controlling your data sharing and visibility between groups. And as I mentioned, branding is also one of the reasons why you need to have 2 different business units. Okay. So one brand will belong to one business unit. The other brand, if you want separate branding for that, then you'll use it as a separate business unit. And you can share data between different business units using shared folders. And also unsubscribe is also one of the reasons. So that means, let's say a customer unsubscribes, you are unsubscribing him only from one business unit. Or you can also set the option to unsubscribe from all the business units. Okay, let's say you have your business unit set up based on countries. So Singapore, Malaysia, UK, etc. Okay, then if a customer unsubscribes, they are only unsubscribing from your Singapore related communication. Whereas from Malaysia communication, they will still receive your emails and all. So that kind of setup can be done. If I'm an admin, do have access to all business units? Yes, depends again. If you're admin, you still have to give permission to different business units. So for some admins, you can still give only one business unit. So that means that admin is only for that business unit. Okay. If you're covering different brands or different countries, then please create different BUs. Yeah. Thanks for answering some of these questions, Fanny. Yeah. Then the next one is data management. So under data management, you have these FTP accounts, file locations, okay, and some key management. So with every marketing cloud instance, you also get something called an FTP account. So when you go into data management and FTP account, you will see the FTP details. So this is the URL, how you want to access, how you should access your marketing cloud FTP, and what is the username, and there's also password permissions, etc. So using this, you will access your FTP. The username for the FTP, it's nothing but your account ID or the MID of the business unit. And we have file locations. So in your marketing cloud FTP, you can set up some of these file locations. Okay. So like in your FTP, you have your import folder or an export folder. Or if you want to set up external FTP sites, you can also set up using these locations. So if you, from your marketing cloud instance, you want to access external FTP, then you will define a location. You will choose external FTP site and you give the external FTP details. So you will be able to access external FTP as well. So these are the different type of locations. Those can be done in your file location settings. Then going into platform tools and apps, under apps, we have Salesforce integration and install packages. So I'll talk about these as well. So Salesforce integration. So Salesforce integration means integrating your marketing cloud with other Salesforce instances like Sales Cloud and Service Cloud. So for that, you will use this screen. in this, you will select, let's say you are connecting your marketing cloud to a sales cloud sandbox, then you'll check this. If you're connecting to a production sales cloud, then you'll uncheck this. And here it will show which user is connecting these two systems, connecting your marketing cloud and sales cloud. So that user will be displayed here. And this is the org ID. Here it will show which sales cloud org ID your marketing cloud instance is connected to. If it's already connected, it will show as connected. If it is not connected, you'll have the options to connect your account. So using this wizard, you will be able to connect your sales cloud to marketing cloud. Then going into installed packages. So this is like, so this screen will be able to give you information about what are all the packages that you have installed from the App Exchange. Okay. So App Exchange, if you are not aware, it's like a app store for Salesforce. So similar to your App Store or Google Play Store, Salesforce has this App Exchange app store. So from that, you will be able to install some of these packages. So that will give you additional features and use cases for your marketing cloud. So here you will be able to see what are all the packages that you have installed. So for example, Query Studio. So that means using this App Exchange product, you will be able to do some queries and all, which are not possible within marketing cloud. So again, there are different types of apps that you can install. And if you click on this, any of these packages, you'll also see the details, what are all the components that are involved. And under licenses, you will see which users can access this which users can actually access this particular app. And you'll also see which business unit can access this particular app. So all those permissions and all, you can do it in these installed packages. Next, we'll go into featured settings. So feature settings, these are some of the settings that you can enable for like mostly on the UI level, like some additional features that you want to enable or disable for your marketing cloud users. So you'll use these features. So you'll have some settings related to Email Studio, sub settings related to your mobile, like SMS, etc. And even some information, some settings you can enable for your content as well. So all these are mostly settings to enable and disable. Okay. So we also have something called approvals. So this is an approval process. So enabling this will help you to provide an approval for an email before it can be sent. Okay. So for in that case, you can have this approval settings enabled. So there are two types of approvals. One is a standard approval and two-tier approval. So in standard approval, there are 3 levels. Okay. So let's say you built an email you want to send out. Before it can be sent out, you want that email to be approved by someone. Okay. So you have a submitter, that means who is submitting an email for approval. Then you have a reviewer. So you will select a user who should be reviewing this email and he will approve it or she will approve it. Then you also have a final approver. And only after the final approver is approves the email, then that email can be sent out. So this is like a 3-step. Then the next one, the other approval process is 2-tier. In this one, there is only submitter and there is only one approver. So there's only a submitter and approver. And for each role, you will assign a user. So that means this user is a submitter and this user is the approval. Anytime an email is sent for approval, the approval will get notified and they'll approve. And then you can send out the email. Then going into content builder settings. Okay. So here, as I mentioned, these are some options you can just edit, enable them and disable them. So for example, email autosave. Let's say you're building out an email and you want to automatically save the email. Let's say if you forget and go into another time, you might lose what you have already created the email, right? So in that case, you will enable this autosave. So it's enabled at the moment. So immediately as you type in, the email will be saved. So you don't need to manually click on save again. And enterprise sharing is disabled. This is to, if you want a sharing of your email or these assets to different business units, you will enable this feature, and then you will be able to share content across business units. Then you have predictable file URLs. So this one, so let's say you uploaded an image to Marketing Cloud. So the URL for that image, it's auto-generated. But if you want to use the file name, what you are uploaded as the URL, then you enable this predictable file URLs. Then we have editor configuration, which is this one. So if so these are again some options you can enable and disable. So in the editor tab, if you want content to be visible, layout to be visible, designs to be visible, you enable this. If not, you will just disable it. And then you have different types of content like buttons, HTML, images, all these. If you want to enable and disable, you can enable and disable it here. Even like advanced content like dynamic content. If you don't want any emails to use dynamic content, then you will disable it. No one will be able to create dynamic content. Okay, so these are some of the blocks that you can enable. Then the next one is email studio settings. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we have the sender profile settings, delivery profile, the send classification, all the reply management settings are all under this email studio settings. Okay. Apart from those settings, you also have some optional features. Again, you can enable all of this. So HTML paste, if you want to have emails to be created by copy pasting HTML, then you will enable this. Then double opt-in, again, if you want your customers to double opt-in, you will enable this feature. Send throttling is also one very nice feature. Like if you are sending out an email to, let's say, 100,000 customers, 1 lakh customers in a day, instead of sending it at a single point of time, you can throttle it. Instead of sending it, let's say at 9 a.m., you will set the time as from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I want to send this. So the send throttle feature will schedule these emails to be sent from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. All those 100,000 emails will be sent throughout the day instead of blasting it at a single time. Again, you have to enable it here, and in your send configuration, you can set those settings. Then you also have BCC emails option. So that means every time you send out an email, you can also set an BCC email. That BCC email address will receive all the emails that you set, all the emails that you send out. So this is like you just want to track what emails are being sent. Okay, so that is for BCC emails. Then you also have text only emails. If you want to create some text only emails, you will enable it here. Let me quickly check any questions. Okay. Then there are also some settings on the test send thresholds. This is purely for test sends, not for real sends. So for test sends, you can set some settings here like 25. That means only 25 test sends can be done in a single send. Okay. Then the maximum threshold is 1,000. That means if you're sending more than this, and then it will throw out an error. This is a warning. This is maximum. Okay. So warning means if you are sending more than this, you will receive an alert, but the send will still happen. Whereas the maximum means it will stop after this. There won't be any option to bypass this. You can bypass the warning, but you cannot bypass the maximum threshold for these test sends. Then you also have subject pre-header validation. So let's say in your subject, so this is like a tool which helps you to track the subjects and pre-headers. Let's say in your email, if you have these keywords that you define here, test or draft or production or dev. So some of these subject lines have these, then it will throw out an error that your subject line has these predefined or the keywords that you've defined. So generally this helps. Let's say you forgot to remove the test from your subject line, right? Then you are automatically sending out an email Then to avoid that issue, you would set up these keywords. So it will automatically check for these keywords before an email is sent. These thresholds are per day. Sorry, are you talking about this? This is for each send, not per day. This is for each send. Okay. Then we have URL expiration. So this is, so when you send out an email, right, you also have this view email online link. So that means you can view that email on a browser as well. So there is an expiry date for that, and you set up here. So the default is 60 days and the minimum value. So after 60 days, that URL will automatically expire. So what happens after expiry? This is also one of the questions. So what happens after expiry? So it will show a default URL like the system, or it will show a default URL. The message would be like your URL has expired. Or you can also define a custom defined URL. So that means, let's say you give your website URL. So if someone clicks on an expired view email, they will be redirected to this custom defined URL. And the maximum that you can set is 2 years, 730 days. So for 2 years, so 60 to 730 days. Then going into mobile studio settings, again, if you are aware of mobile studio, we have something called short code and long code, and the from name that will be displayed under the SMS, and what is the keywords that you define. Okay, so all those can be set out. The most important feature in this one is the blackout period. Okay, so in the blackout period, you won't be able to send out an SMS once you enable this. So you enable this blackout period, and you select some particular time duration. So during that 1 a.m. to 6 a.m., no SMS will be sent. So this is for like to set up this blackout period, and this is purely for SMS, not for email. So this is mobile connect settings. Okay. There's also a catch for this. So I'll give an example. Let's say you set the blackout period as 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Okay. And your send is starting at 9 p.m. And let's say the send will take 2 hours to complete. Sorry, and the send blackout starts at 10 p.m. So your blackout starts at 10 p.m. You do not want to send out an SMS after 10 p.m. So you set the blackout starts at 10 p.m. But your SMS has already started at 9 p.m. and it is still sending, and it will take 2 hours to complete this entire process. Okay. So that means from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., it will actually start sending out. Okay. Even though your blackout is set out at 10 p.m., because the send has already started, it will send out an email on the SMS until 11 p.m. itself. Okay. So the blackout period, it's only to not start something during that blackout period. If a send has already started before the blackout period, it has already started at 9 p.m., it will still continue throughout this blackout period. That's the only catch here for blackout period. Okay. Any questions on this one? Okay. Then going into tags. So these are like folders. I don't really say as folders, but these are like tags. If you want to, so for any content or email, you can define some tags. So, and you can search using tags. So let's say you have a campaign, a Valentine's campaign. For the assets and the emails, everything, you assign this tag, Valentine's Day. And when you click on this tag, it will automatically show all those assets and emails that are created for this particular campaign, or for that particular tag. So this is purely to filter out some of these assets. And okay. And for each tag, you can set out a name and its description. So that's about the platform tools features. Going into Should in the blackout pause the sends and continue later? No, that's not the feature. It's only that you won't be able to start something during the blackout period. Okay. Then talking through the company settings. So these are some company settings or the account settings for this. So in account settings, you will see what is the account name, like your company name, what is the ID for this. So when you raise a support ticket or with anyone with Salesforce, you will give the account ID for their reference. Okay. And these are the default email display name and reply addresses. Again, you can change everything in the email studio, but these are the default ones. It will show how many business units, how many active users are there, and what is the API URL for this account, and the time zone and the date format, like basic account settings. Okay. Then we have brand builder. Sorry, in account settings, we also have some other settings like sender authentication domain. So here it will show what is the sender domain that you're using for this, or the SAP that is set up for this account. So instead of checking with support, you can go into your account settings and see what is the SAP domain that you have set up for this account. So you can easily see it from here. And the basic or the standard HTML header and footer, you can define it here. Again, in emails, you can change these. But if it's a default email, you will see this header and footer, what is defined here. Then going into the slides will be shared. Yeah, the recording also will be shared. Going into brand builder. So this brand builder, it's to change the UI colors and the logo of the Marketing Cloud instance. It's not for emails, it's purely for the Marketing Cloud instance only. Okay. So here you can set the background, top color, the bottom color, what should be the Marketing Cloud login page details, the entire application colors you can change, and the login page colors you can change, and you can also set a logo. So you will see the logo here, you will see. So you can change the logo. Again, you need to remember all of this, which of these you can change using brand builder. You can change login page, these colors, the entire application colors, the email login page colors, and also the subscription center. Subscription center, again, it's a standard profile center. For that page, these will be applicable. So you can use brand builder for branding your standard profile center with the logo and the colors that you choose. So it doesn't allow you to change the UI structure or anything for this profile center. It is only changing the logo and colors. And you cannot change the text also using any of this. Then going into subscription details, this is nothing but like it will show when was this account or this Marketing Cloud instance started and when is the contract expiring. Okay. And there's a shortcut here to access the one of the reports, email send report. Okay. Email send report, it will show exactly how many emails have been sent from your account. So this is just like a shortcut. In your reports, you will see this report as well. So those are the company settings. Then finally going into the security settings. These are very basic and mostly related to IT. Generally, it depends on the IT policies of your company. So that will define what security settings you will set up for in this. Okay. So it is like session timeout, like after how many minutes you want, if there's no activity, after how many minutes the session should be disabled, like they have to relog in, or whether you need HTTPS connection, etc. Okay. Then some other settings on the logins. So login expires after inactivity. And you also need to remember for your certification, what are the best practices? Again, knowing that these settings are there in this, but you should also know what are the best practices. So I've also mentioned what are the best practices for each one. So login expires after inactivity. You should set it as 90 days. So that means after 90 days, the user won't be able to log in if they have not logged in the last 90 days. Okay. invalid logins before lockout. Like you try different passwords, right? So what is that value? So if you tried more than 3, it should fail. So it will lock out the user. And the minimum user length, it's as a best practice, it's 8 characters. Okay, so all those can be set up here. So these 3 are here. Then we'll go into these. And on the passwords also, minimum password length 8 characters. And how many passwords should the system remember, the password history? So as a best practice, we mention it as 8. So if you when you're changing your password, if you're using any of the last 8 passwords, it will throw out an error. And it should have a mix of uppercase, lowercase, special characters, and numbers. And the user password will expire. Best practice is 90 days. After every 90 days, the password should be changed. And exclude API users from password expiration. Generally, we exclude API users because API user will connect 2 systems. We do not want the password to expire for API users. So you have to enable this and exclude API users. Similarly, you also exclude FTP users from this password expiration. So you don't need to keep changing because it will break the system integration. So you do not want password expiry for these kind of users, API users and FTP users. And every time you change the password, whether you want to receive confirmation email, as a best practice, you have to enable this option. Then you also have another option for export email whitelist. That means if any of the users are exporting the data from your marketing cloud, you can set up some restrictions here. So you will add an email address here. Only you can export the data only to that email address you define here. You won't be able to export any of the data to other systems or other email address. Only the user email address that you set up here, only it can be exported to that user, to that email address. Okay, this is for exporting data. So that's on all the settings. I know there's a lot of settings to remember. Again, for your certification, these are very important. You need to recollect and remember some of these best practices and all for your even for if you're a Salesforce Marketing Cloud admin, those are very important as well. Mostly these are defined by IT policies, but yeah, there are best practices followed or suggested by Salesforce as well. Then going into the final 2 topics for today, how to raise support ticket. So if you are facing any issue with Salesforce, right, you have the option to connect with the Salesforce support team. So these are Salesforce employees who help you in debugging some of the issues or even enabling some of the features. So some of the features you can enable from settings, but there are some features which support needs to enable. So in that case, you need to reach out to the Salesforce support team. So how do you do that? So from your marketing cloud instance, if you go into the drop down, you will see Salesforce help and training. So you click on that, it will go into, you have the option to create a case, contact support, create a case. If you click on that, you can give the subject, the description, and it will also ask for the account ID, like for which business unit or which account you're facing this issue. So all those you need to fill it and access that. Okay. It's very simple. But how soon the Salesforce support responds to you depends on the kind of contract that you have. If you have a premium support, Salesforce support team will respond within 2 hours. But if you have a standard, it will take 8 hours. Okay. So based on the contract that you have with Salesforce, the response will be. Then the last topic is Salesforce Trust. So let's say you're working on Marketing Cloud instance and some feature is not working, or the page itself is not loading, or there is some maintenance happening and you're not able to access some of the tools. So how do you check whether actually Salesforce server is running fine or not? So for that, Salesforce has something called trust. So whenever there is a maintenance or anything happening, Salesforce will put that information on a website. It's called trust.salesforce.com. So this is like the transparency that Salesforce has as part of its core values, transparency. So whenever there is some issue with the server or the server is down, Salesforce will inform all the customers that their server is down. It's absolute pure transparency on that. And you can check that status on the trust.salesforce.com. So on that, you will see the system status and the security and also the complaints. Okay. I'll show the screenshots on that. So if you go into trust.salesforce.com, and here you will see all the products. Okay. So Sales Cloud, Service Cloud. So here you have Marketing Cloud. When you click on Marketing Cloud, it will show the instances and the maintenance. So these are all the servers that are there. You can also search using your own domain or the account ID or the MID that I've mentioned. So you can search for it. Then it will show whether it is up or not. So under maintenance, it will show what are all the past activities that have happened, and also what are all the future maintenance planned for your account, for your instance. So all that is very clear here. Again, different kinds of maintenance can happen. For example, if there's a major release, right? So Salesforce will say this account has a May release, and this will be the downtime will be from so and so to so and so, and which is the instance that is affecting this. And there's also some scheduled maintenance. They upgrade the servers and all. So they also have database maintenance. They give the date and time and system maintenance. So this will show all the past. Past, it only shows for 1 month, but future, it will definitely show for almost like 6 months to 9 months. So whenever you are facing your issue, you can come here and see whether your instance is up. If you can see here, if it is green, then it's all good. If there is some performance degradation, it will show an alert. If disruption, that means you are not able to access, then it will automatically update here. Or if it is going under maintenance. So 4 statuses you will have for everything. Okay, so that's all on the Salesforce Trust as well. That's all for this session, actually. I hope I covered, I know I rushed through a lot of things, but again, these are very useful for yours, as I mentioned, not just for certification, but also for implementing or actually becoming a marketing cloud admin. So I think Lakshmi has a question. So defining export whitelist is defining a user who can export, or defining an email address to which anyone can export. It is the email address to which you can export, not the user. Okay, so anyone can export, but it can be only exported to one email address. So only one user will be able to receive that. Thanks, everyone. I hope you liked the session. Yeah, I can see that you have it's useful. Thanks. Thanks, Funny, for answering some of these questions as well. It is my session as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Manish, for bringing a lot of insightful information. Thank you so much for it. Manish, unfortunately, my internet is a little not active. I've sent a Kahoot credentials. Can you log in and then run the quiz if you don't mind for episode 5?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for all joining, and we have a quiz which is going to be happening in the next couple of seconds. So we have a great session on Saturday. It's one of the great session on episode 6. I'll share my screen and I'll show you. So this is episode 6, which is the speaker is Matthews, is one of an MVP and a marketing champion. And these are all the complete, the best sessions. So we have all the best sessions. So it's one of the best session again. We're going to talk about the drilled down details about business units, creation of a business units, talking all the business unit architecture, single org versus multi-org architecture, and the domains and IP warming. One of the great use case topics we're going to talk about it. It's purely an architecture kind of a thing. I would recommend everyone to
I think we
I
lost
think